Shut up and sit down.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fight for Liberty show on Free Speech Media. We have an awesome show for you guys tonight. The great, the awesome Brian Nichols. Welcome to the Fight for Liberty show. How's it going?
What's up, buddy? How you doing? Thanks for having me on the program.
My absolute pleasure. So I like to start off people who are on the show for the first time with just kind of your libertarian testimony. Where'd you first hear the word libertarian? Who got you into the party? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, who first got me into to liberty? It's a weird, convoluted story, as most of the libertarian stories are. Mine kind of comes from many different parts, as does, of course, many other people's. Mine. It's funny. My first real libertarian moment was in 2008, hearing Ron Paul, much like everybody else, on the debate stage against Rudy Giuliani. And that was kind of like the first moment. And at that time, I was a GOP rah-rah team kind of guy. And that was my first moment. I was like, huh, that's different. I like that. And from that moment on, I kind of started to question things, but I was still team GOP. And it was pretty much 2012. I was like, okay, something's not right here. I keep on seeing all the great talking points. You know, we're talking about limited government freedom, peace, tolerance, but then we see what actually comes in terms of policy. And I started to really question, is the GOP the place for me? And I say that, at the time I was the college Republicans president for a few years at the time. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know. It's what a story. Yeah. But
Did you realize that you rhymed there? And that's like a really catchy, like, is the GOP the place for me? Should be like a talking point. That's a catchy little rhyme right there.
GOP place for me. See, it's like these little things I say on podcasts, and then people catch them. I'm like, huh, GOP for me. But literally, though, that was my question. I mean, because I looked around and people that I respected, they weren't a member of the GOP. And I was like, well, why? And they're like, I just don't feel like it's a place for me. Truly, it did not feel like a place I was welcome. And I was like, oh, interesting. So I started to try to get outside of my bubble. And I found that the reoccurring theme was people wanted to see, one, there is an idea of some fiscal responsibility with this idea of personal acceptance and tolerance. That seems to be kind of like this general area where your average person is at. And I found that at that moment, I was like, okay, this might be the answer. And I didn't really understand, though, that was basically the tenets of libertarianism. I mean, the true ideas I really hadn't dug into at that point. It was Rand Paul. I think he was on the Senate floor doing the filibuster for when they were talking about whether it was legal or not for Obama to possibly drone American citizens. That was like my, okay, this guy, maybe I'll pay more attention. And then I was like, oh, this guy happens to be the guy from 2008's Son. Oh, and then it started to say, oh, maybe I should look more into what they're talking about. And it inevitably led to the rabbit holes of, Austrian economics and talking about, Milton Friedman and Hayek and Rothbard and Mises. And you go down the rabbit hole. And then I walked out and I was like, oh, okay, I have a brand new look at life. It's a brand new world almost,
Right.
So I think that's kind of like my first real step into that world. And then, the rest is history. 2015, I got involved at the Libertarian Republic, the associate editor over there. And then I ended up getting a part of the We Are Libertarians Network in 2018, started the show in January 2018, and 250 or so total shows later. Here we are. We're just, 3+ years now on the show. It's been wild. It's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of really cool people. Had a really great opportunity to meet people I never in a million years thought I'd be having conversations with.
Right.
But it's blessed. It's a blessing, man. It really is.
Yeah, that's been the best part for me of the show is the idea of like the amount of people that I've been talking to. And then I really have a stacked couple of weeks coming up. I've got like Ricky Dale Harrington, Scott Horton, Carrie Wedler. Like it's gonna be a stacked couple of weeks. Basically kicking it off with this one of just like back. I have almost an episode a day coming out for like the next 10 days, and it's gonna be a fun fucking time. And like, yeah, all of these people that I would never, I mean, maybe I would have met like Scott Horton at a convention or something. Like, I'm sure Scott Horton's somebody I would have come into contact with eventually. But
Right.
like, I've done shows with Dave Smith now. I've like, I'm now DMing Justin Amash and Carrie Wedler, and it's like, this is a thing that exists in my life right now, and basically only because I have a YouTube channel, and that's just a weird thing to think about. A YouTube channel and a Twitter account. I actually have to give more credit to my Twitter than anything else, for sure.
2021, and that we see this. So my greater day job, I'm in the telecommunications industry, and just to think that what we are able to do right now, right? Like we're having a face-to-face conversation, and we can now air this out to thousands of people. And
Right.
rewind 10 years ago, just to be able to do this was a challenge. Rewind 20 years ago, you needed to have pretty much a company you were working with in order to have the infrastructure. 30 years ago, you had to have the grace of a radio station and some gatekeeper. So we've seen as the technology has advanced that the limitations and the barrier to entry have been reduced time and time and again. And what's that done? It's helped foster more and more conversations like this that are important, but also it gives us the chance to talk to people that not only have we never been able to talk to, but I think sometimes more often than not, they absolutely need to hear your average person's voice. You spoke to like the fact that you can just go ahead and message a congressman. I heard Justin Amash there, right? Friend of the show, and just that's how I talked to Justin. Like I messaged him and I was like, "Hey, you want to be in the show?" And he's like, "Sure." And that's that. I mean, how else would that have been possible 10 years ago, right? So the fact that we are now able to reach out to members of Congress and just have direct lines of communication with them without those gatekeepers, I mean, we're really in a really fascinating time to be alive, man. And to think that this is what we're able to do now, where are we going to be 10 years from now? Like, I'm really excited to see what can we have some fun with from the technological standpoint to kind of get rid of a lot of the problems and the infringements we see in our lives right now. And we're already seeing it, with the NFTs and cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Like, there's a response. Yeah, there's a response in the market. People are starting to wake up. You're seeing Russell Okung, former offensive lineman there for the Panthers. Almost his entire, I think it's actually half his salary in Bitcoin, and now he's the most rich NFL player in NFL history because Bitcoin went up how many percent? So yeah,
a lot of percent, dude. Russell Okung gives me hope for the future. Like specifically his Twitter account is what gives me hope for the future. Him coming over and preaching what he preaches and what he says all day, every day. Like I don't see him tweet things I disagree with, like almost ever. Like no. Like I disagree with Justin Amash. Shit, I disagree with Reed Coverdale's Twitter more often than I disagree with Russell Okung's. So like it's just so beautiful, and I love seeing just this unifying, like semi-famous figure that's preaching liberty and decentralization and like personal responsibility. It's really, and I agree with you that it's a sign of the times. We're doing something crazy.
Yeah.
When I started the show, I was really excited about the idea of 2020 and the opportunity that independent media would have to compete, because everyone was doing shit from home on Zoom with a webcam, right? Like we had basically the same technology for my show as Jimmy Fallon was running with his show, and you could see the production quality was significantly worse, and it was more clunky of a show. I prefer in person. It's just so much better, but this is still great. And at the time this is all they could do also. So we could compete, and it didn't like do a thing like I thought it was going to do. I was thinking like this was the time where Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore, become more mainstream but it didn't happen. Whatever. I mean, they're still becoming more mainstream. We're making it, but I was hoping 2020 and that technological leveling of the playing field was going to help.
Well, I tell us with my sales team, because in sales you have usually a quota, right, of some sort that you're trying to hit, and in the world that I lead, my team's setting appointments. That's what their main goal is. So their quota is 8 appointments per month, and that can sometimes in the industry of the greater telecommunications, cybersecurity world be a little daunting, because you're dealing with CIOs, CISOs, and so you're trying to create value with people who they literally are some of the most busy people at their companies, trying to keep their companies afloat. And saying, okay, 8 appointments at the end of the month, how am I going to hit there? Well, I say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yeah, if you can rewind it and start to look, okay, let's see, 8 appointments per month, that's what, 2 per week. So if you can do 1 every other day, then you're on the right path, and it becomes much more manageable. So the same thing's true when we look at where we want to see the future today. The future is now, it is, but we want to see where we want our libertarian society to be right now. But it is important, I think, to appreciate where we've come from, and in quite honestly, all things considered, a relatively short amount of time. This is all within the confines of 10 years. We've seen a really big resurgence of this greater libertarian movement. And it's entirely due to the advent of the internet. And as the technology continues to advance, I just think it's going to get more and more, more and more spread far and wide. We're going to reach more people. But also we're going to find that the conversations that we've been having are going to start to turn to policy. And once they turn to policy and people are going to start to realize the value in their own lives, that's when we're going to have, that's game over right there. Because we know our ideas win, not in just the battle place of ideas, but if you put them into action, they will win. So once we get them into action, it's over. That's game time for us.
Right. And we're getting there, and we've got even just Marshall Burt out in Wyoming is doing he's already introduced 4 pieces of legislation that I know of, and I'm not even following him that well. Right. I should be. I'm even a prag, so he's one of my guys. I should know what he's up to a little bit more, but he's been doing some awesome shit, and he just got there. So if he can keep this up. What I also, something I'll mention in tandem with him that was really encouraging was to see Lincoln Chafee and Judge Jim Gray go speak at the Wyoming State House in defense of cannabis legalization. Yep. That was something that I was super excited to see, because we have a history of our presidential candidates kind of falling by the wayside and not really doing much after there are presidential candidates. And to see 2 people that actually dropped out, they didn't even make it to the convention, still be that active in the party and making things happen. It's a change of pace that we needed to see. We needed all of the 2020 candidates. We need Dan Berman doing what he's doing. We need Adam Kokesh doing what he's doing. Joe's taking some time off. I'll give her some time off, honestly. That was a fucking rough campaign, but I fully believe that she's going to come back when she says I'll be back. I just need some time off. Spike's doing his thing. We have a lot of the lineup from 2020 still super active. And we've never really had that before as a party that I've seen.
And I think what we're starting to realize is that while competition is good, so is collaboration, right? And this has been really nice to see coming from Dave from his approach is this libertarian unity approach. When we are out there in the marketplace of ideas as libertarian podcasters, libertarian content creators, so on and so forth, we are competing, right, to an extent. But there comes a point where what we're competing about is so niche that we need to realize that our market is so small and so specific that we're alienating our markets into even smaller, even more specific niche. And that's only going to hurt our ability to grow as a brand, right?
Right.
So we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. I don't know why elephants are a reoccurring theme here, but we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room that we're not the predominant party in America. We're not
the elephant.
We're not the elephant or the donkey, right? But we need to get on people's radar. So how do we get on people's radar? Well, first, we have to let them know we exist. So we let them know we exist by raising each other up, by promoting each other, right? So, I mean, I was on Matt Kibbe's program over on The Blaze. The Blaze is not I would say, a traditional big L or heck, even small L libertarian organization. It's more in the conservatarian world, right? But Matt Kibbe, as a true libertarian, is able to have a platform along with Eric July, another, in the ANCAP, and to reach an entirely different group of people that they otherwise would not be able to reach. And then Matt can have somebody like me on the program to talk about, what I do in my show about how we do sales and that we take ideas and relate to people and instill value, right? How we show them from where they are, paint the better future, bring them, from step 1 to step 10. And that's something that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do were it not for the collaboration. So I'm excited to see that we've now kind of accepted that this is the next step. This is how we grow. And with that, we're going to see some growing pains. You see the people, the little fish in the little pond mentality, like, no, because as soon as we start to grow as a movement, guess what? Those little voices become even more, insignificant. And as they fade off into oblivion, it's not going to matter as much. And it's not even like a takeover of anything. It's the fact that we as a movement are going to naturally grow. And as we naturally grow, we're going to be bringing in more and more people who are going to have more and more influence. That's just going to be a natural consequence. So when we see people taking over positions of power, be it, at state positions, local elected positions, it's not a matter
that was a nice curve around us.
What can I say? It's not a matter of us taking over, right? It's a matter of accountability in action.
I like that. Are you a member of the Mises Caucus?
Not officially, no. But I definitely watch. I pay attention. I'm in the group. I shadow, lurk there, and I give my likes and hearts. I appreciate 1,000% what they're doing, though. I've been saying this from the beginning that we need to have a more consistent messaging from top down. The lockdowns have been the biggest issue that was not focused on, and it was such a missed opportunity. And the fact that we give the GOP the opportunity to let that become their issue, shame on us. Shame on us. So I look at the Mises Caucus as a great opportunity to make sure, at the very least, we're holding the other parts of the Libertarian Party responsible, right? To what does it mean to be a libertarian from a truly philosophical, principled standpoint. No, I'm not going to dig into the debate of that, because honestly, that stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day. It really doesn't. What matters is getting the actual ideas into action. So as soon as we're able to change the conversation away from the stuff that really it doesn't matter and start to focus on the stuff that's actually mattering to real people out there in society, right? The people we have to convince that our ideas are not just important enough to be heard, but actually put into action, that we need to get outside of our own bubbles, our own echo chambers first. Because I don't know about you, I've never had a sales call. I mean, I do sales for my day job, right? Never had a sales call by just only calling in to my existing customer base and growing my company. It's not how it works. You have to go out and you have to get uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zones, reaching people that you haven't reached before. And guess what? They're not going to be 100% libertarian. As a matter of fact, they might not be libertarian at all. And it's on us to acknowledge that when they come into the movement, they're not going to be that. So how do we get them there? We teach them, we train them. You don't tell them you're not libertarian. You have terrible ideas. You're a terrible person. Be gone. That doesn't work. You have to get them into the movement and then teach them the value. Hold their hand. I know when I first came to the movement, it would have been a lot easier if I'd had somebody be like, hey, here's what it means to be a libertarian on this issue or this issue and this issue. But I know for a fact that there were a lot of people who said, statist, you don't even know what it means. Why are you asking questions about the roads? That's not conducive to building a good libertarian society and community. We have to be able to have conversations and dialogue with each other first before we can expect to change other people's minds. So let's change our internal dialogue first. Clean our own room up, as Jordan Peterson would say.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I had a great conversation last night. Me and Reed Coverdale co-host a show on Monday nights, and we had Bill Barger and Ben Richards. I don't remember. Shoot, from the New Hampshire State Mises Caucus on talking about what they're doing, and we were talking about the Libertarian Socialist Caucus platform because I really love the wording in it. I have a couple friends in the caucus that had me read it because I told him that I could join any caucus in the party, that I agree with every caucus enough to join, and he was like, "Really?" and showed like went through the Libertarian Socialist Caucus platform, and specifically because of how it's worded, I do agree, because there's one part of it where they talk about UBI and Medicare for all, and they specifically say that these are not libertarian ideals, but that they as a caucus support it because they consider it a step in the correct direction of, breaking down the corporatist oligarchy, whatever wording they use for that. That's my favorite word for it. The cathedral, whatever you want to call it. And I agree that like breaking the back of the healthcare industry and some form of and fixing our welfare system would break the back of the cathedral in a way that would be beneficial to libertarians. So, but the fact that they clearly state in their platform that this is not a libertarian idea, that this is something that they support outside of the party, I think if everybody in the party can kind of adopt that style of a thing of like, when we disagree, it's okay to say that we disagree. And if we're all saying it like that, like even the most like hardcore ANCAP can't disagree with that platform because it says it right there. It's not libertarian. So you can't be like, you're not a real like if we're admitting outright that none of us are real libertarians, then we don't have to have that fucking argument anymore.
I forget who it was. They had a phenomenal analogy, but basically, like, imagine for a moment, right? We are all taking part of Elon Musk's brand new venture to libertarian land, right? And that libertarian land's what, Mars? And he picks all of us nerdy libertarians and he puts us all on his brand new private spaceship to Mars. But on our way there, we get into a fight on the spaceship, right? Now, are we gonna blow the spaceship up mid destination? That's not productive. That's not gonna be helpful for anybody.
Probably. Let's be real. Yes, we would.
But hey, listen, we're on this spaceship towards Mars that's going to become libertarian, and I understand that to your point, there's going to be areas where we're going to disagree, but can we all at least acknowledge that on our destination to where we're going, that the end destination is a better spot than where we're coming from? So how about this? In the meantime, let's acknowledge, like, hey, we don't all agree on a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that we do agree on. And in the meantime, we all have an important job to do on the spaceship, right? Everybody in the spaceship can't be piloting the spaceship, but there's a lot of other stuff that needs to be done, right? We need people to make sure the spaceship's got fuel. We got to make sure that there's food on the spaceship. You got to make sure all the life preservation tools are up and running. So let's take that and apply it to our movement. What can you do? And I'm saying this as everybody out there listening, what can you do? What value do you bring to the table? Do you bring to the movement that you can say, hey, let me help move this forward? And that's right now, I think, where we are going to find the most success, because while we want to see our ideas at the controls driving the spaceship, let's understand that we need to be working together first, because this spaceship, if it does go wrong, we're out there alone. What's going on in the world right now, and Dave does a really great job mentioning this on Part of the Problem, is that the context of where our moral outrage is completely bananas. Like,
Amen.
He used the perfect example. If Biden had said, or if he'd accidentally had us bomb a school, and then also had us had said that we were going to go ahead and ban transgendered people from the military, which one do you think would be at the top of the news story the next day? It wouldn't be the school over in Yemen. It would be the policy position.
Yep.
Now, we can have the argument about that, but in terms of priorities of what's 1,000 kids in a school, right? Like, that might be something that we need to be looking at with a little bit more temperature.
Fuck that.
Right?
What is war?
Oh, that's the thing, right?
See, I'm an Austin Peterson libertarian, so I'm completely okay with the slaughtering of women and innocent women and children for the sake of spreading democracy.
Is that a thing? Are we doing this now?
Did you see that on Twitter? No. It was like a week and a half ago. Oh, he was defending the double atomic bomb drop in Japan, in World War II, saying that like the casualties were collateral damage and like they were warned and should have gotten out of the city or should have gotten out of the country, and that because of Pearl Harbor it was justified, and like civilian casualties included.
Oh
And
no, I missed all this.
yeah, that was, oh my God. It was one of the best things that we've had for Liberty Unity, like since Reed and I started. Actually, basically since Maj Touré told everybody to eat a dick, because that was probably the first like great moment.
Now, full disclaimer, I'm a big I write for Austin's website, the Libertarian Public. Like Austin and we're actually pretty good buddies and stuff. So I missed all that, but no, I didn't realize that was a thing. So my day job, unfortunately, like the intensity, and you'll see me active, air quotes, active a lot on Twitter. A lot of that's just like scheduled stuff I've pre-done like the week in advance. And then I can't
wait till I get that shit set up to where I'm in the same boat, because I would love to just not be on there.
Well, then I log back in, and then like I hear like, oh, did you hear about this? Name this gate, and I'm like, what gate? Like, what? I don't know. I've been working all day trying to
right.
move my career forward and stuff.
Advanced liberty or some shit.
Right? Come on, guys.
But it was like, as much as I hate the Twitter infighting, and honestly do have a little bit of I probably have more respect for Austin than maybe the average libertarian, or at least in my friend group. But it was a nice like unifying day of like everyone just dunking the shit out of him, being like, shut up.
Austin's a good sport too. I mean, he definitely can dish it too. So I'm sure he had a good day.
Yeah, that's I think he kind of enjoys being the liberty movement's whipping boy sometimes. I feel like he instigates on purpose, because otherwise, like, I don't understand why you would have those kinds of arguments. Like, why are you arguing for the atomic bomb? Like, of all the things we could be talking about right now, is that really the one that you want to like lose 100 followers over? Like,
well, it's definitely. I mean, and this is, I think, where we're going as a party, is where we are seeing more and more folks wanting to talk about like, well, let's talk about like right now, like what's going to help get the food on the table, right? What's going to help get the jobs back? Like, what's going to get the cities back to normal? I mean, New York was losing 500,000 people per year before COVID hit, right? And that's not just the city; that's the entire state. That number, I'm sure, in 2020, I'm sure it's skyrocketed, right, Dave? I mean, that we have to start focusing on what do people care about, because until we do that, like, people are just going to look at us as white noise. I mean, and I love Vermin Supreme, and I'd say this, tongue in cheek, but we cannot be the crazy guy with the boot in the head and the blowhorn screaming on the corner all the time. There's a role for that. And it's a caricature, and it's supposed to poke fun at the system, and it plays a role. But that's not the only caricature that we need to have in the movement. We need to have real people presenting real solutions to real problems. At the end of the day, and my audience goes crazy because I do this all the time, but truly everything is sales. And when you're looking at what truly means to be a sales executive or a sales professional, you're a problem solver. You think you go to the doctor. If you went to the doctor and you had spent time beforehand researching everything that was wrong with you, and you went to WebMD and you went to the doctor and you're like, all right, doc, here's what I found on WebMD, and I'm pretty sure I have stage 4 lung cancer. And they're like, yeah, yep, you do. Bye, RIP. No, you don't want a doctor like that. You don't want a doctor like that.
R.I.P.
But honestly,
I know that's the Michael Malice style libertarianism. It's just like, yep, you're dead.
That's it. You're dead. But think about it. How often do we see that's how we approach things? We are the RIP. We're the doctor who just says, yep, we're screwed. We're dead. But no, what we want is somebody who's going to be taking, okay, here, tell me what, okay, you're right. You're an expert on WebMD. Put that down. Tell me, when did you start experiencing this pain? Like, what were you doing? Right? Oh, you were lifting weights. Okay. What were you lifting? Were you doing chest? Okay. Did you happen to like notice you pulled anything? You lifted a little heavy that day? Oh, okay. You probably have a pulled muscle, right? Let's go run some tests. And you run some tests. Turns out you pull a little bit of the muscle. But you were convinced ahead of time that you're dead. R.I.P. Right?
Yep.
We want,
because that's what WebMD does. Like,
right.
Everything is cancer.
Exactly. But if we wanted the doctor to not be a true doctor, we would have just wanted him to reaffirm what we had already said was going to be our end result, which was death, right? We don't want that though in real life. We want somebody who's going to challenge the things that in this, we're seeing this also with just the advent of the internet. There's so much information that now this is where sales is going. And this is, free sales advice for everybody out there. You're going to see the world changing to, instead of just, people being the solution providers, it's now being the solutions providers, but also the filters. You can go online, you can search for anything, and you're going to find a bajillion different websites that are going to answer your questions. Now it's to know which ones are the right ones, which people can you trust, right? And the people that are going to be having the most success in building those relationships in sales roles in the future are going to be those who really have spent the time finding out who are the best in the business. If you can find a niche to be that expert, you're going to be very well set up for the future, because people are looking and honestly, they're demanding people that they can look to and have some trust that they're being told, even if it's not necessarily the right course of action, that at least the mindset behind it is well-intentioned. People are looking for authenticity. They're looking for genuinely good people with good solutions, not just, hey, we're going to tell you all these wonderful things. We're going to pass a $1.9 trillion spending bill, and we're going to call it the COVID relief bill, and only 20% of it goes to COVID. But we're not going to tell you that out front. We're going to tell you it's all for COVID.
Tell us that? That sounds like information we don't need.
But people are waking up to it. Like when they first passed that one bill, remember they were like, "Oh, the your tax dollars are going to a Pakistani gender studies program." And I saw leftists sharing that meme. They're like, "What the fuck is this? Like, where's my money going?" And
right?
Yeah, where is your money going? That you should be asking that question.
No one's talking right now about the fact that Trump tried to actually pass a bill that was just $200 or $2,000 checks.
Yep.
Like that was a thing that the Republicans tried 3 months ago.
Yep.
That actually happened, and the Democrats shut that down. And now they finally got us a total of $2,000 over a 3.5 month span, and they want to pat themselves on the back. And it's like, no, you just spent an extra fucking $4,000 of my money on other bullshit that didn't need to be spent, and I could have had this money 3 months ago. You could have been passing another bill to give me another $2,000 check in March, because I already spent the one that you gave me in January.
Well, guess what? What you just said, what they want you to say, because I just saw this tweet too. This is conditioning for UBI. They want you to be in the mindset of, why can't we just send this every single week? Why can't this just be every so often? It's a consistent thing. Why is this taking so long? Let's just make this consistent. That it's 100%. And I have not been one at all. The plandemic, and I'm not trying to get you canceled, buddy. But we need to take a time out and say, what's going on? We're watching, and we've been told from the very beginning, trust the science, trust the experts, right? Okay.
Trust the science is the most anti-scientific sentence that's ever existed in science. It's
such an appeal to authority, and the idea that there's like a consensus in science is such a myth. And I look at the
whole point of science.
Right, but let's pretend, right? Let's just pretend that we're going to go with this mantra of trust the science, trust the experts. Let's look at the science. Let's look at the data. Cases are they're plummeting right now, right? We're seeing vaccinations through the roof. I think it's like almost a third of Americans have received at least one of the doses of the two that they're supposed to be receiving. So, what's the end game? Why are we talking about, when people get vaccines, that they're still going to have to wear masks? Why are we still talking about society being shut down in areas when pretty much you're seeing maybe an uptick in cases, but it's young folks who are getting it, who aren't going to the hospital. And if they are, they're there for a day and they're checking out. ICUs aren't being overrun. Hospitals aren't being flooded. We don't have a ship sitting outside of New York City waiting for people to go into it because there's not going to be room in the hospitals. By the way, that boat sat pretty much empty for a month.
Completely empty and completely untouched.
Right. So we need to, number one, let's talk about the experts and the data that is real data, But also, and this is what we need to start doing, and it's stop listening to the people who have been talking from the beginning about the catastrophic endings that we're going to have and the hyperbolic nonsense that we have to do this in order to save society. We have to shut down society to save society. Did you know that, Dave? Isn't that crazy? And to think that there have been so many people that have bought that hook, line, and sinker, man, it breaks my heart. I have good friends who are smart people, and they have bought this narrative. I mean, there's a really good family friend of mine. She had COVID. She has received both her vaccinations, and she's terrified of going back to work because people will be there, and she doesn't even know if they're not wearing masks or not. I was like, what are you?
Then why did you get vaccinated, woman?
Also, what are you afraid of? Like you had it, you got vaccinated, and this is something that this is like a psychological thing. Mask has turned into not a thing that actually keeps you safe, but a psychological trigger that you're keeping me safe, that you care about me. It's a true visual representation of that. And if you don't have the mask on, that's a trigger. You don't think that my safety, my security is worth what yours is. And it's and I'm not arguing.
Unfortunately, that's actually the scientific, like, to talk about science, like the one thing that they have gotten right from the start is that masks aren't to keep yourself safe, it's to keep others safe. That actually is the science. And unfortunately it's true, because you're right, it did that to society. And that's why I wear a mask, because especially with what I was doing for work through 2020, like I worked in 14 different states throughout the year. I was canvassing I took like March to June, or March through June off, like those 3 months. But other than that, I was talking to hundreds of people a day, sometimes fist bumping and shaking hands and like whatever. So like if anybody was going to have COVID, it was me. So I tried to be really careful, and I always
we didn't know. We didn't. So like, at that point, I get it. Like, wear the mask, be extra safe. But like, if you've been vaccinated and you've already had it, and you're double masking and you're paranoid, like, now we're at a point that's not a reaction to a virus. That's not a sensible like response that a normal person has. It's somebody who is genuinely afraid and unfortunately have been conditioned to be afraid. And there was I think it was Pew just did a survey. I think it was Pew, Pew or Rasmussen, but the average person thinks that COVID is 10 times more dangerous than it actually is. I wonder why that is. I wonder.
I wonder if it's the same reason why people think that there's a crime spike in New York City right now. Have you heard that? Curious. Have you caught that narrative? No. Down where you are? Okay. No. So I wasn't sure how widespread that bullshit narrative was, because basically all the mayoral candidates are campaigning on it, except for ours, of course, because we don't lie to our constituents. But there's this whole narrative that New York City is super dangerous right now, and there's an increase of crime in the subway. Like, people are getting pushed onto the tracks, and people are getting robbed in the subway.
Really?
Things that have never happened before in Brooklyn or like Lower Manhattan ever, right? Like, because we used to be a crime-free city. If you look at the numbers, crime is plummeted in 2021, and this is compared to 2020. So like, we're already starting to compare like year-to-date numbers with after people were freaked out. Like, New York City started to freak out in like January, February, and then locked down in like late March. So we're already like starting to come up on COVID time comparisons, and because crime plummeted in like fall and summer of 2020 in New York compared to where it normally is, because everybody was inside.
Right.
And even this year, we're still on track to be drastically lower than that, especially subway crimes. Subway crimes in the subway are down 200% from where we were this time last year.
Wow. It's a big number.
And Andrew Yang is out here campaigning on we need to make the subways safe. It's like, fuck off, you fear-mongering bullshit.
Yeah. Well, look at every part of the proposals for the new $3 trillion that they're talking about from the Biden administration. It's all just pork. That's all it is. It's going to unions. It's going to infrastructure, air quote infrastructure. It's
Oh,
just go
sorry,
go.
continue.
No. That's
I
more
just
interesting than
remembered
infrastructure.
something that I haven't mentioned on the show yet because I keep forgetting about it. But I actually just found out that my hometown of Fulton, New York, which is like a tiny little fucking podunk town in upstate New York, is getting $3 million out of that 1.9 trillion to do whatever the fuck with it. Nobody knows. Like it's a conversation of like, what should we do with this money? But my little podunk town got $3 million.
$3 million.
Mhm.
And where
I'm
did that money
stoked. I want to know what they're gonna do with it. Like, I'm really stoked to find out.
Do you think they ever asked that? Like, where does this money come from? Just magic money tree. We just have those.
Magic money tree, bro.
I love that the Fed
Money printer go.
the Fed invested in the chemistry to build the magic money tree, and I'm really glad that our top R&D went right there. You know, just magic money trees galore. We needed it this past year. How much did we? $7 trillion last year. I think we spent versus our normal like 4 that we had scheduled. It's just making believe money at this point. Just add zeros into a computer. That's all it is.
Yeah. One thing that I liked. So I'm working on Stacey Pressman for mayor of New York City. So that was a little bit of a shameless plug and a dig at our opponent. But we were filling out a candidate survey for like like extremely left wing like climate activist group that wanted us to fill out this survey to see if they were going to give us their endorsement. And I was really caught off guard because if you look at their website, they're super left wing, like most of the cookie cutter shit. But in the survey, it specifically addressed that that New York City was scheduled for, I don't actually remember the number offhand. I think it's like a $3 billion deficit for the next 4 years. And so it said that at the beginning of the question, and then asked basically what investments you were going to make with the budget to make sure that we were both closing that deficit and covering a bunch of different things that we need to do with like one investment. Like it was really like, how are you going to like do this fiscally responsibly? Like, how can you accomplish a bunch of left-wing shit fiscally responsibly was kind of the question. And as weird and like almost unanswerable as a question as that is, it was nice to see the fact that people actually are at least addressing the fact that there's a fucking deficit that we have to be worried about, and we can't just be throwing money at problems willy-nilly.
Right. Well, the cities don't have the magic money tree. You see that they didn't get the seed from DC, so they're stuck. They're stuck with real life, which is unfortunate because if they had a magic money tree, problems would be solved. They just print the money. Well, not print. They grow the money. Excuse me, off the magic money tree, and they just pay for everything. But unfortunately, in cities like Philadelphia, New York City, they actually have to have money that comes from somewhere, and it's either going to come from A, the taxpayer, or B, in this case, a handout, which came from the magic money tree, but it's just one step removed. So if it's going to be coming from not the magic money tree and it has to come from the taxpayer, well, guess what? The people who are going to be paying for that, they're going to say, fuck this, and they leave because they have the means to. So who ends up footing the bill? The middle class. And then what happens? The middle class either A, gets poorer, or B, leaves. And then what happens? Now you have all these programs that are unfunded, and they start to just balloon out of control. You have pensions that start to become unfunded, and at that point, liabilities. And all of a sudden, you have an entire system that is built on a house of cards. And then, a COVID pandemic happens to come along that just happens to facilitate the government to print from the magic money tree, just cover all that magical, stuff that was going to be happening. Just poof, gone. It's magical, man. It's magical.
Magical. Do you believe in magic? Actually, so you are from Philadelphia, right?
No, so I was laughing when you said you're from Fulton. I'm from upstate New York too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I live in Philly.
Yep. Okay, you live in Philly now. Okay. So because you guys have the existing things in place that I'm basing part of our answer to that question off of, which is you guys have sold naming rights to like 2 transit stations in the city of Philadelphia.
I believe so. Yeah, I think, and that's relatively new. I believe too. Like in the past, I think past like 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they sold for some pretty decent, or like they're being I think leased for a decent chunk of money. I still need to do more research on it, so I'm not going to delve into this too much because I'm
still so new to me too. Like I'm still like I feel like a brand new person in my city. I've been here for like 6 years, but I still feel like I've just got here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I first of all, I love Philly. I actually got to spend some time there the last couple of years. I've bounced in there for like 4 or 5 weekend vacations now, and awesome city. But I really loved Larry Sharp had this idea for the bridges and tunnels in and out of New York City when he was running for governor, and really as mayor, we can't do that, right? That's a governor talking point. Like if they touch outside of the city, like the city doesn't own those bridges and tunnels, so that's not our thing. And I personally, it would be really hard for somebody to buy into the idea of changing the George Washington Bridge or the Lincoln Tunnel, right? You might be able to get away with changing the Verrazano because what even is that? Nobody knows what Verrazano means or who that is. That a person? Like
he was a sailor or a discoverer of some sort.
So right, like
he did a thing on a boat.
I'll take a page out of Dave Smith's book and be like, I could have researched this for this bit, but I didn't because it would be better. I think it would be hard to actually sell the bridges and tunnels thing. I think it's a little bit unrealistic of a plan. I think I would like to try it, and I'd love for Larry Sharp to win and be our governor and try it. But I really think when it comes to the transit stations, like nobody gives a fuck. It's like 46th Street station. Like nobody.
You watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that big building that they go to, and they look down at the what's that building called? Do you know? No
idea.
So I maybe I'm an old fuddy duddy. Back in the day, that was called the Sears Tower, and it will forever, it will forever and always be the Sears Tower. But it's not. There's a different name for it now. I forget the name for it, but that name will forever stick with it. So I think you could almost get away with that with like the George Washington Bridge, sponsored by Pepsi. Like you could do something like that. It would be different, but everybody would still like. It's still the Lincoln Tunnel. It just might happen to be the Lincoln Tunnel, sponsored by Progressive for the month of May through July. I don't know. Like this is the thing. Like there is, and this is why it's so great. There doesn't have to be the perfect answer. We can try different things and see what works. How about that? That's the best part. That's why this idea is so beautiful.
Yeah. That's the point of libertarianism. It's like decentralized, and then you have like a million little cities doing a bunch of crazy shit, and then you get to talk to each other at the state house and be like, hey, in my town we did this thing where Pepsi bought that covered bridge that we have, and they paid us $10,000 a month just to put a Pepsi logo on it. Y'all should reach out to Budweiser because they're in your area, right? And like, boom, everybody's happy.
Yes. Well, and I don't think people realize like these companies have massive marketing budgets. I mean, like millions and millions of dollars, because how do you get your name out? Like part of sales is to not just, solve problems, but when you're going to see the future of sales go into what's like going to be like a chief revenue officer kind of role. Like if you're going to be like the tip top of your profession in sales, it's chief revenue officer. So the way that's going to get there is going to be a mesh of marketing and sales together. And part of marketing is not just getting your name out there, but keeping it consistently out there. So companies are willing to pay through the teeth in order to make sure that their name is at the top of everybody's mind. Think about it. Every sporting event you go to, it's going to be some, beer that you're going to be seeing at the top of every single, inning. If you're in a baseball game, every commercial, it's starting with a Budweiser or, a Miller commercial. So they want you to be seeing their name for a reason, because when you go to the store, they want you to instantly go there. So just add that on top of this. Like this is just gravy for them. They're like $10,000 to keep a bridge up and going up every month. Pfft, okay, like that's easy, and then they can hire somebody to do it. They're not going to be this is like people are like, you think Pepsi's going to go ahead and like build bridges? No, they're going to hire somebody who knows how to build bridges, because why would Pepsi want to do that?
Or maybe they will. Maybe they'll be like Domino's and literally put the fucking Pepsi logo in the asphalt so you can't do shit about it.
The bridge will be made out of empty Pepsi bottles.
Ooh.
And then they've solved the climate crisis too. It's a win-win.
Ooh.
See? We're making things happen here, man. Making things happen.
That's actually I feel like that's a thing that we could really like accomplish.
Probably.
That seems like a doable thing.
Do it.
Of like
like honestly, like there's so I find in life, and this is why my list of things to do is so long, but like part of life I'm realizing is when you have an idea, don't just assume somebody else is out there already doing it. Like they probably had the idea, but like try. And if somebody already has had the idea, learn from them and try to do it better. Like, but a lot of life is just showing up. Like I saw a really interesting quote, and it was success is
that
just...
was already an interesting quote. Life is about showing up.
Oh, see, I didn't even... I'm not even saying quotes on purpose there. I was gonna say it was like life's it's like life's about it's not about success, it's about just doing it over and over again and getting lucky or something like that. But I guess my life's just about showing up quote was better. So we'll just go with that. Delete that last like 10 seconds, yeah. The live stream didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Yeah, so what I found has been really fun lately that I've been doing is if I have an idea, rather than adding it to the endless to-do list, what I add to the to-do list is find somebody that's doing this that I can help.
Yes.
Because I'm not very tech savvy. I have pretty bad ADHD, so like I don't research well either. Like I spent last week making a gigantic like 100-line spreadsheet, and that hurt. That like physically hurt to just sit there, fucking copy paste. I'm on a laptop, dude. Like it hurt. Like
God bless you. It's a lot.
So that's not my strong suit, but I've found that there's people out there that have that strong suit. I've actually met a bunch of friends in the last couple of weeks that those couple of specific things is their strong suit. And I found that like tech things are some people's strong suit. And so, if I have an idea, like something that I'm working on, right, or that I was going to work on was like a volunteer-based Indeed kind of a thing where people could post things that they needed volunteers to do and people could go on and find it and help. And then I had a conversation with TJ Ferreira from the California Libertarian Party, who developed the Porcupine software that we use in New York State for our state committee meetings, and we were supposed to use for the national convention, and there was a bug, unfortunately, but they fixed it, and now it's great, and a bunch of states are using it. And shout out to him. He's building something like that already. It's called it's libertarian.support. It's not up yet, but it's getting there. And he actually like knows how to build that. I don't. I would have had to have gone and found a bunch of people and tried to build it and it been my thing. I don't have time for that shit. What I do have time for is to help find volunteers to help him build that and then push a bunch of people there once it's built. That's something I can do. So I've made a bunch of friends in the last couple of months that are working on all these little projects, and I can't wait to start like pushing people to them and getting to promote them, because I've spent the last month really just focusing on building this platform.
It's music in my ears. Like honestly, to see for a little bit there, it was a little rough in the greater libertarian movement, because it seemed like the voices were very consistently stale. You seem to have like it was the same people complain. Oh, no, hear me out. It was the same people complaining and the same issues that have been issues still being issues. Nobody was taking a step to make things better. And I think what we've seen over the past, I would say year especially, and more focus, especially in the past 3.5, 4 months, is that there has been a much more collaborative effort to get rid of the mentality of this is how things have been, though, right? Let's focus on what are we going to be doing better as a movement going forward. How can we best plan and work together to get that better future, to make people's lives better, like now? Because I think, I'm not sure about you, man, but like I'm tired. I'm tired of talking about this all the time. Like, we're at a point now where we have the resources, we have the manpower and woman power, we have the tools, we have the technology. Let's make it happen. And now we're seeing the people like the Corey DeAngelis out there. School choice is happening. It's happening. We have people like Dean Clancy doing health savings accounts for all, pushing that with Rand Paul in the Senate. That's happening because people are taking the steps. And I mean, God, I've had on my show quite literally dozens, now at this point, hundreds of people who they are doing something in their area, whether it's, talking about Second Amendment rights, talking about, free speech alternatives, like trying to keep communication channels open, whatever it may be. There are people who are answering the call. So now it's on us to make sure that we're raising up those voices. And when people out there are saying, okay, well, what do we do when, Facebook goes ahead and censors all of us? You say, well, you go to a platform like library.io, or I believe is now Odyssey, right? Or I guess that's more YouTube oriented. But like, you have these alternatives, you have the answers. And that's what people need to see, is that we're not just the people on the group chats talking about how great we are and how our ideas are going to be so perfect one day, but actually to say, okay, here's the problem. Where's your solution? And then to say, here it is, and here's how it works. And here's our case studies of X, Y, and Z times that we've done this before. Now it can work for you. we have the chance now to actually do that. And if we're not doing that, then what are we doing? Honestly, like, are we just trying to hear ourselves be right? Like, I'm done with that. I hope everybody else is too, because it's getting us
fucking men.
It's been 40 years of this bullshit, man. Like, come on, like let's roll.
Right. I think what I definitely know for me, and I don't normally speak for Reed, but I can on this specific topic. I think one of the things that definitely triggered us to push the unity message was going outside of the party for a little bit. We both worked on Tulsi Gabbard's campaign, and then I went and worked for Yao. So was on a bunch of Republican campaigns. He didn't do that part, but we both kind of stepped out of the party at what I would consider almost its worst. Like I was ignoring the party from about like December of 2019 till like September of 2020. Like I was just like, y'all do your shit. Like, whatever. Like after they, like I was at the convention a little bit. I wasn't a delegate. And I watched them choose Jorgensen, and I was like, all right, I don't even know who this bitch is. I thought she was going to drop out back in 2019. Honestly, I was just like, I don't know who you are, but sure, let's go for it.
And she's so nice, and that's the thing. Like, she's such a nice person. She's so smart, but like,
she's not a presidential candidate.
No, like, and that's the thing.
She's a policy director.
Right. I want her on my team. I want her on my, and I had her on the show twice. Like, I think she's a great lady, but like when I'd say like, Dr. Jorgensen, if you had the chance to talk to, an average person, what would you say to them if, they told you their number one issue is the lockdowns? And then she would give some philosophical answer about how the Libertarian Party has been, supporting individual rights since 1970. And I'm like, okay, that person doesn't care about us right now, I guess. And that's not to say anything bad about her, because I think she's a great person, but like, that's not a winning argument. And then I had Spike in the show, and Spike is just knocking it out of the park because Spike's a sales executive. He knows sales, like he lives sales his entire career. So like you ask him, Spike, how would you sell, criminal justice reform to a rabid conservative group? And he's going to go all Al Bundy on you probably. And then you can go, how are you going to go ahead and sell, fiscal, entrepreneurialism to the name some area, and he could go like war on drugs. I don't know, like just that's the beauty of being able to communicate with people. Like,
yeah.
And we need to understand that we're putting people at the head of the party, and they're the mouthpiece. We have to stop wanting people who are going to tell us that we're pretty. It for what? Like, great. They're
for what?
Like, yeah, we're the prettiest of all the libertarians out there. Great. Like, I want us to actually reach more people. I'm sorry. Like, should that not be a goal to reach more people and to hopefully get people to ask more questions, pique interest, get them to say, tell me more? Nobody's going to want to say, tell me more after a college lecture every single time you get a response. If anything, they want to tune out. People are done being lectured to. People want to feel that the solutions that are being offered are tailored for them. And the way to do that is to listen better, to understand what is it that they're asking for. Right. So I say this to my team when we're calling in, right? So we call in, I mentioned before, CIOs, CISOs, that kind of stuff. If I hear a CISO say, hey, listen, I can't talk right now. I'm in between like 4 meetings. Can you just shoot me an email? Your average person be like, hey, yeah, sure. What's your email? I'll go ahead and send over your email. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye. I'll say, hey, really quick, I don't want to just send over an email to fill up your inbox. It sounds like you're swamped. Is there anything on your plate right now in XYZ that you're focusing on that you could use an extra set of eyes on? Just a different question. What are you doing right now? What are you focusing on? I want to know. And then I'm addressing the real problem. The real problem isn't, the product I'm selling. It's not, it's not a cybersecurity solution. It's not a fiber connection. It's he was busy. He was swamped. His hands were full. He was in 4 different meetings. So that means that he's probably trying to juggle 4 different things at once. So what can I do to help make his life easier so he's not as busy? And that's where we need to start changing the conversation. Stop talking about the things that we care about. Stop talking about just saying war on drugs, criminal justice reform, ending qualified immunity. Talk about that, how it actually applies to real people. Tell stories about how it's impacted real life people. Go out and introduce yourself to people who have been impacted by these policies. If you're able to show that you care, guess what? They're going to care. And that's, I think, where we have a real opportunity right now, is to be the people who are standing there with open arms saying, listen, I hear you, empathize, but also I have solutions. And with that, we have to be assertive with our solutions because we know they're right. And we have to make sure that when we're recommending the solutions, that we are truly making sure that the solution we're recommending is for them. It's not just some blanket cookie cutter solution, because then we're just like everybody else. People want us to care, and they're demanding right now. They want authenticity. Now it's on us.
Yeah, 100%. Have you interacted with Jeremy Todd at all in the Twitter sphere?
I sure have. Jeremy's a great guy.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Every time you mention like sales shit and correlating it to libertarianism, like he's the fucking man. I really love what he's trying to do with the Carnegie Caucus.
Yes.
I don't know. I've talked to him a couple of times because I don't know that caucus is necessarily what he's going for, but and I think that we need less caucuses. So like part of me is trying to steer him away from that word. But
and if anything, it's more of a mindset. I love that, like a Carnegie mindset, right? How to build value and truly be the trusted advisor. That's the approach. Right. I mean, it's so needed, right? But I think
he wants to action. He wants action items on it where he wants to actually be the guy, or he wants a bunch of people to be out there training. No offense, or actually all offense, these fucking mom's basement, neckbeard, like policy wonk libertarians, train them on how to interact with other humans before they fucking run for office, because too many of these people are running for office still as mom's basement, neckbeard, policy wonk libertarians, and no one wants to listen to the fucking thing they have to say.
Yes.
Read like put down you're reading Ayn Rand for the 3rd time. Put it down. Go read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Well, and also, can we be real for a second? Maybe that's not your role. Maybe you shouldn't be a candidate. Maybe you should be the guy behind the scenes, like helping write policy.
Right.
That's okay. Like, and this is
still go read How to Win Friends and Influence People, though.
For sure. Like, that's a super great book. But like, this is maybe part of the problem that made me so frustrated with the movement to begin with when I first entered, is like, nobody's going to take us seriously until we take ourselves seriously. And if we have these guys who are running and they're just being brutalists for the sake of being brutalists, like, no. And if they can't communicate, like, I'm sorry, I don't want somebody who can't communicate and like just completely turn off somebody, because then not only have you just turned somebody off, now in some cases you probably made an enemy. And like, how is that conducive to us, growing the movement in the future at all? So I would say if there's people who are actively looking to get better and truly enter into this with the mindset of like, I have room to grow, yes, please. But like, if that's going to be a challenge and you're the engineer, I say engineering, I'm in the telecom world. We have the engineers who write the white papers, right? They make the stuff work. If that's you, that's okay. Because that role is super important. I'm not the engineer. I can talk about how the stuff works. I can't go into the telecom closet and make it work. So we need those people. And to say know your role sounds a little crass, but I mean, honestly, like, do a SWOT analysis, figure out what your strengths are, but also what are your weaknesses? What opportunities are there out there for you? But also threats are there to your holding you back, and pay attention to that and be honest with yourself. Because if you're lying to yourself, you're just going to hold yourself back. But yeah, don't try to do everything. It's not necessary. Like, differentiate skill of labor. Come on, guys.
Yeah, that's actually the main reason that I joined the Pragmatist Caucus, was because of their mindset of like focusing on putting people in the correct roles and then converging on specific winnable campaigns and just like fuck all this ideological like differences bullshit. Some of them act like we're an ideological caucus, and people definitely target us like we are, but we're not. Like, in our ideals, we're not. There are people who are still really ideological, but as a caucus, there is no ideology. Our ideology is win. Like, right. And so that's why I joined, was because they were really focusing on training people into the different roles, not just training candidates, because that's something we don't do as a party nearly enough, but also training treasurers and training campaign managers and training comms directors and field directors. Like, that's some shit that, as someone that's worked on almost a dozen campaigns now in the LP, like, we're lacking in all of those areas every time. Every single time,
like, super embarrassingly bad. Yes.
Yeah, we have like one amazing, or I'd say we have like maybe 3 or 4 like really amazing campaign teams.
Yep.
That are usually working 2 to 3 campaigns at a time. Like, we have most of it on Stacey Pressman's campaign with Caitlin Cloven and Tom Pinkasov and Sasha Cohen, and we've got like the Vermin Supreme crew, plus a bunch of prags like myself. Larry Sharp is actually like the person that got Stacey involved with the party, so he's pretty heavily involved. And so like we've got like half of one of the heavy hitter teams. Like, but in reality, like we're using all the good people, and what the fuck is everybody else in the country doing this year? Like, or these people are splitting their time, which is what's actually happening. And all these people, including myself, are on like 3 or 4 campaigns.
Right.
And I'm on like 3 caucuses and a state committee.
Well, I'm in this is where like I've had Jason Stapleton on the show before, and he hates guy. Yeah, and I love him. He's great, and I think his show has been really, really influential in my life, especially. But like, he's completely against the political approach. He thinks it's a waste of time, and I vehemently disagree. Disagree, because I think it is important, absolutely important, to make yourself the best version of yourself. Build that wealth, power, and influence. But I mean, if we're not playing the politics game, guess what? The other people are. Like. And we can't ignore reality. Like, they're out there right now making the rules, and it's either we at least have a voice at that table, or we don't. And if we don't have a voice at that table, guess what? Then we really don't have room to make too much stink when we see this terrible policy impacting people's lives in a negative way. Now, yes, we can build ourselves up with wealth, power, and influence, that approach, and that'll get you so far. But I mean, I'm sorry, at the end of the day, if you are in a Venezuela, yeah, you can escape, but escape to where? What happens when you escape to all the places? there comes a point you have to get involved. Either I had a really good teacher back in the day, and he used to have a line about war. War is not a spectator sport, and it's so true. But it's true about politics. Politics isn't a spectator sport. You can say I'm not playing. I'm not taking part in your silly games. You'll be paying taxes still. You'll still be dealing with the consequences of our foreign intervention for decades to come.
They're still playing games with you, whether or not you think you're playing. Like you can still lose even if you didn't think you were playing, and you will.
Yeah,
that's basically what happened to me. That's I really try to find like what I would consider like the trigger moment where I really became a libertarian, quote unquote, because it was. I was raised like an independent, kind of fuck the government, constitutional conservative of like America's great, the military is great, but the government is sus. So try to avoid it. Like that's kind of how I was raised.
Yeah.
Like, but I think like I was arguing with my mom at like 13 that like sex work should be legal because there's a difference between legality and morality. Like I found out that was a thing that was illegal, and I was like, this shouldn't be illegal. This doesn't make sense.
When I was 13, I was playing Warhammer. Like I had the little figurines that you'd put on the table.
I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh at the time too. So like I was a nerd. I was a nerd for sure.
No, me too. Don't worry.
Actually, the poster that you can kind of see the corner of, that is a Boy Scout poster because I'm at my parents' house back in my childhood room. So that poster has the Scout Law on it. I was a nerd. But so I got the difference between like morality and legality pretty early on. But the moment that I really was like the state is terrible was the first time I got pulled over. I was in my parents' car. I was going to pick up my sister from work, and then we're going to drive 2 hours to my grandmother's house. And this was like 7, 8 o'clock. So we were going to be driving at night. So me as a 17-year-old kid, I brought my BB gun with me because I was like, it's a little pistol. I was like, just in case, like something happens, we break down and we're there and somebody pulls over, thinks that they could do something. It looks real enough that I can scare somebody off. Right. I'm with my sister. She's 5 years older than me, but she's my sister. Like it's my job to protect her.
For the context, people, we're in the middle of nowhere. Like literally you call 911 and you're lucky if 15 minutes later, they'll get in touch with you. They might call you back.
Yeah. Yeah. I was driving. I was in Fulton, going to Syracuse to pick her up to drive almost to Buffalo, like Batavia. Okay. So like that was if you know upstate, like you know that. So I get pulled. I drive a pickup truck at the time, but I'm in my parents' Chevy Trailblazer, which has worse brakes than my truck and an amazing V8 engine with really great acceleration. So I'm coming up on a stop sign, and I'm going a little too fast, and I slam on the brakes, and I don't stop. Like I'm not gonna make it. And I look, and there is no one coming. I'm good for days. And so I like try to stop, and it doesn't work. And I was just like, fuck it. And I just run it. I'm like, fuck it. Like there's no reason. If I don't do this, I'm gonna go straight in and get hit because there are people coming this way. What I don't notice is that one of the people coming this way is a cop. He literally, so I run the stop sign and I hit the gas and I forget how, so I gun it and I basically take this corner at like 25 miles an hour, like through a stop sign. Like it looked really bad. Like not going to deny it. It looked really bad. Just to give you an idea of how much time I had, this cop was able to pull into the road I came out of, turn around, come out and come back, and was right behind me. Like that's how clear I was. Pulls me over, asked me for my license and registration. I can't find it because it's my parents' car, and the gun is in the glove compartment. And so I tell him I'm like trying to hide it. Like I basically like have it pushed up to the roof of the glove compartment. I'm like fumbling around. I can't find it. Finally, I turn to him and I'm like, I just need to let you know that like I do have a BB gun in here. It's still in the holster. He freaks out, makes me get out of the car. makes me like gets it out, like unloads it, uh like just like completely freaks out. And I'm 17, and like I grew
Right.
up, my two best friends' dads were cops. Like my mentor throughout all of middle school and high school was a cop. Like I was one of those kids that grew up like actually super respectful of the police, almost wanted to be one.
Right.
And that was my first actual interaction on the other side of the law, and it was just god fucking awful. And I was like, this is what laws do. Like this is what a fucking stop sign law does. Like no one was gonna get hurt, but I got a gun pulled on me as a 17-year-old kid because of a fucking stop sign law. And so I think that's like the trigger moment for me. That was when I was like, fuck this all. Like that's when songs like Fuck the Police started to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, fuck the police. And it's only gotten worse from there. Like I've had like another dozen and a half interactions with police since then. None of them have been good. Like so it hasn't gone great since then. That's for sure.
No, I hear you, man. Unfortunately, and we talk about this a lot, and I actually just had a gentleman on my show from the Market Urbanism Report, Scott Beyer.
Ooh.
It's all incentives, and you see a lot of it. It is incentive structures in place that they're not they're not built the right way, and it's sometimes by design. Sometimes it's just ignorance is bliss, and sometimes the ignorance of the individual leads on unintended consequences, and it's on us to try and walk some people back, man. And that's, I think, hey, what you're doing, what I'm doing, we're trying to get people aware, trying to get them to have the conversations, but let's lead the horse to water. But I mean, we can't make them drink, but we'll get them there.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Well, before we go, I want to give you a chance to give everybody watching a quick elevator pitch of what you've been doing, and then how they can get involved, how they can help out, how they can find you.
Fantastic, my man. Well, first and foremost, thank you for what you're doing. This is important. This is how we are able to reach more people. I've said it on my show a million times, which you so kindly put briannicholsshow.com there at the bottom. My show is great because I can reach people talking about issues that people care about that will educate, enlighten, and inform. However, right, I can't reach everybody. I need more voices out there. That's why I need people like you, people like Mark over at Lions of Liberty, Dave at Part of the Problem. We need folks like Chris at We Are Libertarians, and there's a slew of other great shows out there that we can talk to. And
that was a badass list right there.
There you go. Hey, I'm a part of Chris's network. I've been on Mark's network many a time. Dave's just the final, right there for the Thor's, not Thor, my goodness, Thanos's gauntlet. Just gotta get one more. But honestly, if folks want to see things get better, it requires us to put our money where our mouths are and to actually start to lead by example. So if they want to go ahead and follow me, yes, briannicholsshow.com, or you can follow me on all social media. It's at bnicholsliberty. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, minds.com, and parlor.com, all at bnicholsliberty. And if you want to email me, Brian at briannicholsshow.com. And then my one final ask is, as people listen to the show, we're doing 4 shows a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have our traditional interviews with top guests, whether they're CEOs, scientists, economists, so on and so forth. And then every Sunday, we're doing a candidate series where we're highlighting some libertarian or liberty candidate who's running for office, and why are they running for office? What are they focusing on? And what issues are they raising up in their communities that we can raise to the forefront of a national conversation? So having those folks on has been a really great opportunity to raise up some local community issues and also raise up some really awesome candidates. So if folks are getting value from all 4 episodes and all the other bonus episodes I do, all I ask is head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and review. It takes 2 minutes, just quick 5 stars. And why do you listen to the show? If you're a longtime listener, what have you been listening to for the show for 3 years? My goodness, why? If you're a new listener, what was it that made you say, hey, this show is piquing interest and gets me asking more questions? So it's briannicholsshow.com. And thank you again for all the work you're doing here at Fite for Liberty. David, thank you so much, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. This was great. Definitely have to have you back on for sure.
Amen. And you'll be on my show very, very near future.
I look forward to it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications. Actually, there's a little bell now that you have to click to get notifications. And even then it's sketchy because YouTube and Twitter hate us. But go ahead and do your best anyway. Follow us over on Twitter at Fight for Liberty, at David Fite. And if you want to support the channel, Cash App is the best way to do that. Fight for Liberty. Give us a couple bucks because StreamYard is not free, and neither is any of the other things that we do. So please give us a hand and support the channel. Brian, again, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks,
Pleasure's
guys,
all
for
mine,
watching.
man. Thank you.
All right. And we out.
Hey fighters, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos. If you want to learn more or get involved, go to fightforliberty.com/join or reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Fight for Liberty. If you want to help keep the show going, Patreon and Cash App are the way to do that. We'll catch you back here next time. Until then, keep up the fight.